Upirush Habeis, the second interpretation of Lech Lecha, Goimer El Haaretz Asher El Haaretz, and that is the first interpretation was Lech Lecha. God tells Abraham, Lech Lecha, go to yourself, reveal your greatness to the world. It's a Lech Lecha from above to below, to take the deepest intellect, the deepest concepts of godliness and spirituality, and sprinkle it upon the world, and teach it to the world, and bring it down to the level that even a child can comprehend. Now, we're saying the Lech Lecha is the opposite. It's Lamata Lamaila, from below to above. You're starting from the lowest level, getting out of our rut, getting out of our darkness, getting out of our mishagas, getting out of our challenges and anxieties, and go to a level of holiness. El Haaretz, what does it mean? Kapashtus HaKosov. Like the literal translation of the verse, from below to above. God tells Abraham, leave the land. Which land? The land of your father, which is the land of Terach, a land of idolatry, a land of the opposite of purity, a very low level, and go to a higher level. Go from below to above. Ad El Haaretz, until the land that I will show you, Shekoi can now Malchus, which represents the level of Malchus, the level of kingship. To a degree, even beyond that, where Abraham builds an altar to God, that reveal himself to him, which is higher than the attribute of Malchus. And Avram Avinu ascended to a level of to Havaya, to the level of Havaya, of godliness. What does that mean? There are two levels of Havaya. There's a lower level of Havaya and a higher level of Havaya. This is the level of the higher ascent, the higher level of Havaya, the supernal level of Havaya. Havaya Nilam, the level of godliness which is concealed beyond time and space. Higher than the level of Havaya that is revealed. That is and similarly says the Rebbe, this is the idea of this time of year that we just finished now, the month of Tishrei. We now enter into the month of Cheshvan, a month that there are no holidays. What's the job of this month? What is the mission of this month? The Yaakov and Jacob goes on his way. Every Jew is called Jacob, and each person now goes on their path. What does that mean? Each person, after the month of Tishrei, he even the Here too, says the Rebbe, that each one of us now goes on our way. And there are two ways. There's the way from above to below. We're going from a month that was complete and replete with holidays of holiness, and now we're going into the everyday world. So we're going from above to below. We have to now reveal this level of godliness to the rest of the world. Like Abraham had to reveal the secrets and his knowledge to all humankind, so too we now take the power, the blessing, the light of the month of Tishrei, and we reveal it to the rest of the world, and we bring it into our daily life. That's going from above to below, and then there's a level also from below to above. What does that mean? Starting from your work, starting from your actions. And furthermore, to the lowest levels of our actions, which are found in the heel of our foot. That is the meaning of Yaakov. Jacob is your Akev. Akev is the heel. That even our lowest actions, our lowest objects, and our lowest preoccupations should also be taking this to a higher level, a higher purpose. Even a level that's the opposite of life. Similar to Terach, Abraham leaves the city of Terach. Terach represents idolatry and darkness and death. So too, when a person starts now from the lowest level, meaning even spiritually, the level of death, a level where a person is severed from godliness and darkness, now we have to go up. And a person begins his journey now after the month of Tishrei. You have the power to do this, to pull yourself out of this darkness, of this death, the spiritual death and the physical death. That even the Ekev Shaloi is all their Herin Elikus means that even the lowest parts of your body, even the heel, should understand and feel and comprehend godliness. As God testifies pertaining to Abraham, Abraham heard me even in his heel. Shagam Ekev Shaloi hot der head. And Abraham is our father, is our forefather. Therefore, this gives each and every one of us the ability to do this. As we know, as the Alter Rebbe says in Tanya, that we have a spiritual gene from Abraham, and that is to love God. And the same is true, we have a spiritual gene from Avraham, that even the Akev, even the heel, even the lowest level of impurity and darkness should be used for godliness and be elevated to a greater purpose. This we have this concept that the hearing of godliness, the head belukos b'chalakoichis ad lukeach hasecha sheberoish shetia behem mashmiya l'maylam d'vagbola d'secha. That every part of your body should hear godliness. That heading godliness should be affected, to understand it, not only to listen. You know, they say you have two ears, and sometimes it goes in from one ear and goes out the other ear. The point is, it should get stuck inside of you. It shouldn't leave the other ear. In other words, that heading means it should be heard in a very deep fashion, a very deep way, a very meaningful way, that it changes you. This is true not only for the heel, but every part of your body, and even the intellect should hear it. In other words, it should even be beyond your intellect. Because when you hear something, you say, what? I can't believe it. Yes, that's true. That is the reality. You don't have to believe it. You don't have to understand it. This is the way it is. So even the intellect, which has its preconceptions, its established beliefs, this concept also has to be broken. This concept also has to be changed. To hear what God says, not to base it on what you think is right, but to follow what God says in the Torah. And not to follow your preconceived notions. And that's the meaning now. This is the avodah, this is the mission. This is the theme of this month, of every person. And Jacob now begins to travel on his journey. On one hand, it's a journey from below to above. And this is also derived from the holiday of Simchas Torah, which is the final holiday of the month of Tishrei, which is what? It's dancing, it's joyous dancing. How do you dance? With your feet. And from the feet, it's not only the feet, it's the heel of the foot. When your feet dance, not only the feet are going up, but also the head goes up. You jump, you dance. So now the head is also elevated. From here we see that the feet can elevate the head. In other words, that he dances and is rejoicing beyond the limitation, beyond any type of confinement. And this gives us the push. This gives us the impetus. This gives us the encouragement that we should also continue after Simchas Torah to travel, to jump, to gallop, to stride, and to journey halicha higher and higher throughout the entire year. Starting from the lowest level, the lowest function. the lowest faculty, which is action, including things that we take for granted, things that we walk on with our feet, which means that is so normal, so regular, that we don't take into consideration that perhaps there's a deeper purpose behind these things, and to put more attention and awareness to them. You do things without any intention, without any mindfulness. You do things without any deliberate chayis, without any exuberation, excitement. Like the heel, which is the most insensitive part of the body, which is called the opposite of life. In other words, in the human body, where do we find the concept of what death, the concept of hepech ha'chaim? That's called the heel. The heel is the part of the body that represents death, because it's the most insensitive part of the body. And even that part has to dance. Even that part has to be moved. And this, by the fact that you lift up your feet, you lift up your actions, this impacts also the head, because the head also now rises higher. Dalit, chapter number 4. Now these two explanations that we said till now, above to below and below to above, which by the way is contrary to human existence, because people cannot go in two directions at one time. You can't go from left to right and right to left. You can't go up the mountain and down the mountain at the same time. It's impossible. Only schizophrenics can do those things. And yet this is demanded of every Jew. At the same time, you're going from below to above. At the same time, you're going from above to below. And we can do this. Why? Because we possess a soul. We possess an neshama. And because we possess an neshama, we have a soul. We have the ability to do these opposites. And that is the meaning of Pirush HaPanimis Torah. That is the meaning which is explained in the secrets of the Torah. She'ovar hanor. As we say, which means on the other side of the river. Our fathers dwelled. What does that mean? What does it mean, the other side of the river? So he explains it as follows. The other side of the river implies that our forefathers came from a place which is higher than paradise. Why? Because it says, it says that a river came forth from Eden, from paradise. But our forefathers were Ever Hanor. They were on the other side of the river. They were beyond that river. They were beyond paradise. In other words, this concept, according to Kabbalah and Chassidus, according to Pnimius Torah, the idea of the river coming out of Eden represents Bina of Atzilus. Eden is Atzilus, and the river is Bina. In other words, our forefathers came from a very high place. They came from the other side of the paradise, of the other side of the river, higher than paradise. And they took that power, that blessing, that light, and they brought it down. They were able to derive that power and to fuse that power into our daily lives. On the other side of the river, I knew Atzilus, they brought it down into the level of Zah, of Atzilus, the lower levels of Atzilus, and then it also permeated and pervaded the entire land of Canaan, the land of Israel, which was known as a place of idolatry. It came down to the quality and the faculty of Malchus, which is the 10th Sefirah, the 10th of the attributes, canals of Eretz Yisrael, Kal Malchus. As we said earlier, that Eretz Yisrael represents the attribute of Malchus. Starting from Abraham started from his land. What is his land? A very high place, a place higher than paradise. And he brought down this power, to the land where I will show you. And who, representing a descent from the highest levels to the lowest levels, as we said earlier. There's also a second explanation, a second interpretation, that Avram left a low place to a high place. He went from a place of terach, of idolatry to the land of Israel, a holy place. And therefore, the same is true when we say that originally our forefathers were on the other side of the river before they came to the land of Israel. What does that mean? This is a low level. Means, as we say in the Haggadah, we start with the low point and we end on a high point. We end on a high. But we start with the bad things. We start with embarrassment. You know, unfortunately, our forefathers, they served idols. This means they were on the other side of the river. Now we have to leave that place. Each one of us, in our lives, we have things that we are embarrassed about. Things that we say, oh my goodness, I can't believe I did that. It's not a problem. We have now the power to leave that place behind. We have the ability to go over to the other side. We have the ability to pull ourselves out of this darkness. And regardless what our friends and family tell us and do, we have this ability of independence, autonomy, to be able to make decisions for ourselves. And this is given to us by Abraham. Abraham went against the entire world. It says, Echad Hoya Avram. Avram was one person against the entire world. Can you imagine? And that power he gives to all of us, his children. This spiritual gene, to be intrepid, unintimidated, and to be able to go to the other side. Hey. Chapter 5. Even though these two interpretations of Lech Lecha, to go to yourself, one is from above to below, and one is from below to above, seemingly are two opposite interpretations. So how can they both be correct? How are they possible to be integrated? Being that they both are an explanation for this same word of Lech Lecha. Is a proof that we can do both of these things together. To go from below to above, and to go from above to below. As we see, God tells us, and I will walk amongst you, says God. What does that mean, I will walk amongst you? Two types of walking. It's in the plural, implying from a below to above and above to below. Similarly, God says, and I led you upright. Again, upright is in the plural. Representing two stories, two levels of elevation. In other words, representing to be standing upright through the light of the Yasher, the straight light, the light that goes from above to below, and then to be upright because of the returning light, which is called Erchezer. It's like you take a basketball, and you bounce it on the floor. When you bounce it hard on the floor, it goes higher than the person who bounced it. So if you're 6 feet tall, and you bounce the ball strong, the basketball will go now 10 feet tall. This is called the Erchezer, the returning light. There are two types of Avodah. There's one from above to below, and the other from below to above. That is Lashon Abim. That's the meaning. God says, I will, and I led you upright. I gave you both abilities to have these two qualities. And made Abbas came, the Yasher came the Erchezer. One is he. That's the meaning, I led you upright, that God gives each and every one of us the power simultaneously to do these two things. On one hand, to reveal our greatness, to bring down the highest levels of spirituality and impact all the lower levels. And number two, to take our physical things and darkness, even the level of death, even the heel of our foot, and elevate this to the highest levels, that we should hear godliness even in those dark places and impact even the highest places through how elevating the heel of our body. This is also connected with the year. in which the Rebbe said the Maimon, which was a leap year, V'yasei Mezuzah, Hishnasa Ibur L'Siyum Ma'aseh Cotton. It also has a 19-year cycle. Sheba Nasa Sima Dishnasa Chambam Hishnasa Labana, when the sun and the moon are aligned together. As the sun represents Mashpia, the sun represents the giver, the benefactor, the teacher, the mentor. Representing the teacher who's now teaching a student the light from above to below, to reveal the teachings to one who does not know, to inspire one who is uninspired, to give money to one who needs charity. That is the idea of the sun. Then you have the Lavana, you have the moon, the less that has no light on its own. That represents the receiver, representing one, who starts on the bottom, ground zero, and goes up. An idea of a leap year is to connect these two things. On the one hand, to be a mashpia, to teach others. On the other hand, to be a receiver and learn from others. On one hand, to bring spirituality down to the lowest levels. On the other hand, to elevate the physical and make it spiritual. Representing simultaneously these two things. This represents that we have the ability to be at the same time the sun and the moon. The sun to give light to others, and to be like a tzaddik, one who does the right thing, he goes on the right path. And then there's the service and the mission of the moon. To be a receiver, to learn from others, and to change your ways, to go from below to above. Representing the service of a Baal Tshuva. Now you could do both together. You could be a tzaddik and a Baal Tshuva on the same level, at the same time, simultaneously. As Baruch has explained in great length earlier in this Maimer. Because of Einenu, and our eyes will light up like the sun and the moon. What does that mean? Not only that our eyes should be like the sun and like the moon. That on one hand, there are times that we are mashpia, that we inspire others. And then there are other times that we are inspired by others. But rather, they are both happening at the same time. Two eyes. One is the sun, one is the moon. At the same time that you are projecting and inspiring and being the benefactor. At the same time, you are also being the Baal Tshuva. You are returning to God with more passion, with more excitement. At the same time, you are learning from others. At the same time, you realize that there are things that have to be fixed. Not a contradiction. You can do both at the same time. How that works, that's something you have to work on. But it does work, and it can be done. And we do have the power to do this. Abraham was given that power, and we are his descendants. We too have that same power. The Aver, who mekabel and this concept of uniting these two is the introduction and the vessel, like a limb of the body. The limb of a body is not only a recipient, but the limb of a body is also proactive. So yes, it receives the blood, but at the same time, the hand has to write, and the hand has to give, and the hand has to provide. To be able to receive by doing these two things at the same time, up, going below to above, and above to below. By doing this, we now access a new light, the Ein Sof, the infinite light, which is higher than the Geder, higher than the quality, and higher than the theme, higher than the objective of above and below. It is known that after this perfection of the awakening from below, which is the moon, and the awakening from above, which is the sun, it is known when you do something below, God returns midah Keneged midah, favor for favor, measure for measure, and he gives you a higher level than you expected, more than you deserved. Shleimus Aveda, b'tziruf beis inyon manal, l'shana tamima, hu ha'asa shalom. Shukali la'asharas erin seif, v'yibruchu shari abasa shalom, and now you become a complete vessel. And when you are complete, God dwells with you. So now you're able to access a higher light, the light of the Ein Sof. And by doing so, you are able to even acquire a higher level, which is Asmos. Now you become one with God. And there's no distinction because you are one with God. And Torah itself testifies that you and God are truly one. A quick anecdote. The Rebbe once said that a person should be like the sun, not like a black hole. He says many professors in the colleges are like black holes. They're not like the sun. They're very knowledgeable, but instead of inspiring the students in a good way, they suck them in. And this we see today in the world around us. So we have to be the sun, not the black hole. We have to be a moon and be a recipient to learn from those who are smarter than us, who are more righteous than us, and more sincere than us. At the same time, to be a teacher and to be a mentor to those who need our inspiration. And by doing so, we're going to have the true halicha, the true elevation to go on our journey. Each one of us has our own path. Each one of us has our own journey. Each one of us has great things to accomplish. So go out there and make it happen. Now is the time. You have all the gasoline you need to travel. You have all the knowledge you need to travel. You have all the blessings you need to travel. Go and put your foot down onto the ground. God bless you. An amazing year. Bracha v'atzlacha.